experiment is active already and I want to enable sticky bucketing.
Mhm.
So would it mean that only new users will be sticked to their buckets and already sampled users, they can be randomly actually rebucketed? There is no guarantee that already sampled users will stay in the same buckets.
No, not really, because the way bucketing happens is that when you're looking at the targeting, for example, you define how is it that you want to bucket your users. So you could choose to bucket users by any user property, but typically we use Amplitude ID to bucket users. And Amplitude ID is created as a combination of both device ID and user ID. Once you've been identified as a user and you've been assigned to a particular variant in a test, then very likely every time you keep coming back to the product of the app, you're going to constantly be assigned to the same variant. We don't want you to jump variants because your Amplitude ID continues to remain the same. Now, there may be instances where you might jump variants where you've seen the experiment in like an unauthenticated experience of the app. And then after you authenticated, maybe you jump variant because a new Amplitude ID was created. Once you enable sticky bucketing, then the user gets consistently bucketed. And the way sticky bucketing is typically used is when they're targeting users who are living in a particular region. So their example was Paris. So everyone who's in Paris should be sticky bucketed into this experiment. But quite often people also travel back to a different city where they live. They want them to still be in the experiment even once they've moved back to home, for example. So in that case, sticky bucketing comes in because even though the location of the user has changed, they are no longer in the targeting criteria, but they are still bucketed within the same variant for the experiment and they're still seeing the same experience and the experience is not diluted. But typically, when you set up your experiments and you're bucketing by Amplitude ID, for example, then the experience for the user has to be consistent because you're not expecting different Amplitude IDs to be created for the user.